Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford,
No.
Carrington,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
James.
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 nay.
All right, the proposed ordinance amendment with the rezoning has been read for a first time, and it'll be back again. The next regular city council meeting is October 8th. Thank you for your time. We're at number 4. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution requesting that the city council approves granting the bid award to DMC Consultants, Inc. and execute an agreement for an amount not to exceed $773,340.43 using American Rescue Plan Act funding to make construction improvements to the Mattie McKinney Hatchett Park?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Support.
It's been moved by Councilwoman Jones, seconded by Councilwoman James. It's now before us for consideration. Administration, you have the floor.
Thank you. This is a really important project that was spearheaded by the Pontiac Community Foundation several years ago. We took on this project some time ago and finalized, made sure everything was in correct condition in terms of the design and engineering, and are now ready to proceed with construction. I do just want to alert City Council to the fact that this was not the lowest bid for construction. It was the second lowest bid for construction. And the reason why we're recommending this bid is because there were a lot of concerns with the references for the contractor who was the lowest bid for construction. A lot of folks who had previously had work done by that contractor who was the lowest bid were not pleased or happy with the work and had experienced problems with the work. That's why we're bringing forward this contractor for recommended approval. And with that, I'll turn it over to Director Price.
Thank you. Good evening to everybody. As the mayor said, this was not the lowest, but we are recommending DMC Consultants to not exceed $773,340.43. This process, we did have the bid up starting Wednesday, July 24th, and it closed on August 22nd. We did do a reference background check on the lowest bidder. That did not come back to our standards, so we are recommending this contractor here.
All right, any discussion? Councilman Parker?
How much ARPA money has we dedicated to this park?
There's been nothing dedicated to this park as of right now. How the ARPA money was dedicated to was in terms of many and neighborhood parks and then community parks. So in total for all the parks was $6 million. This was part of the neighborhood and community parks.
Mayor Grimal?
I do want to mention, though, that the neighborhood and mini parks was really for the ARPA budget for the neighborhood and mini parks, as I understand it, was really for the 10 neighborhood and mini parks that were initially selected for that. This is really an 11th neighborhood and mini park, and part of the proposed budget amendment that was published a week ago and will be coming before City Council, I believe, in 2 weeks, does or would allocate, is a better way to put it, the funding, some funding from the community park ARPA budget line item to the neighborhood and mini park budget line item to assign some of those ARPA dollars to this project. Some of the funds for this project are coming from the Pontiac Community Foundation. Some are coming from Oakland County by way of the Pontiac Community Foundation, but we are proposing that some of the ARPA dollars that were originally allocated for community parks should be allocated to this park.
Pro Tem Carrington?
Yes, Mayor Grimal, so exactly how much is coming from the Community Foundation to this particular project? I know that for years they have been raising money for this particular park.
$314,000, with the balance being proposed to be covered through ARPA dollars.
All right, thank you.
So again, that was $314,000 from which source?
So it's $314,000 that we will get from the Community Foundation. 214 of that is actually the Pontiac Community Foundation, and 100,000 of that is money that Oakland County had previously pledged to the project.
So $314,000, and then doing the quick math, what would be the source for the remaining $460,000 if this, not to exceed amount was fully utilized for these construction improvements.
We're proposing that it be ARPA dollars that had previously been part of the $2 million bucket for community parks, and that be transferred as part of the budget amendment that came before City Council last week for publishing, and that be transferred to the neighborhood and mini parks to allow for it to be used for this project.
Okay, and what can residents, park goers expect once, the cake is fully baked, the park is improved? What's the nature and scope of the improvements?
Pretty much everything there, signage, new playground equipment, improved basketball courts, just pretty much just a total redesign of the entire park.
Okay. Councilman Parker?
Oh, I may have missed something in this discussion. We're reducing the amount that was reserved for the other community parks. We're reducing that to support this park. Is that what I heard?
No, we're not reducing anything that was dedicated to that. What we're doing is there's $314,000 that's coming from the Pontiac Community Foundation. The remainder of that, we're going to be pulling from leftover reserves from the budget that was budgeted for the major parks to fulfill and finish this project. So basically, this is what we're saying. So let's say if we had $2 million that was dedicated towards the community parks. Our budget has come under $2 million. So the remainder of that, what we're looking to do is to take that and go towards finishing this.
Why not just increase the amount to the other parks?
Because that was the decision that was made.
Order in the chambers. Mayor, are you wishing to answer Councilman Parker's question?
I am, yeah.
Mayor,
So we may in fact do that. We had allocated $2 million to community parks total. Of that, roughly $1 million is being used by the engineering firm to do design, engineering, and well, first the concept design and design engineering, meaning preparation of construction documents for the improvements to 6 of the 7 community parks, not including Pontiac Oaks. And so that is still proceeding full speed ahead. We will still, after this transfer of funds, have approximately $500,000 remaining in the community park fund. And that $500,000 can still be used to do some of the work needed in terms of the bathrooms in the community parks. To the extent that doesn't cover the full amount of the bathrooms in the community parks, we are prepared to recommend using some other funds, including general funds, to assist that. But we won't really know the full cost of constructing new bathrooms in the community parks until we go out to bid for that work.
And so part of it, if I'm reading between the lines, is that we have a date certain when ARPA funds have to be obligated. This project is in a cycle where it can be used for obligating of funds. It doesn't mean that future funding can't be utilized for community parks, but probably not some ARPA funding for some of the future phases, maybe of other bathroom work, et cetera, because of the timeline, the window of when ARPA needs to be obligated by. Is that a fair interpretation and clarification?
Yes, that's absolutely accurate, but it's also the fact that right now, this is ready to go out for construction. And so let's get this project rolling, even as we are prepared and will be going out to bid soon for the bathroom work in the community parks.
Another clarification, are any of the funding sources, the $214,000 that Community Foundation received from the Community Foundation of Southeastern Oakland County or other, funders, collaborative, whatever the sources were, and then $100,000 from Oakland County, even though it's gone to that entity initially, are there any sunsets or timelines, any expirations for when those funds have to be utilized that are immediately to your knowledge? Mayor?
Well, if I understand the deputy mayor correctly, it's more than $100,000 from Oakland County that is going to this project by way of the Pontiac Community Foundation. It's $214,000. Is that what you indicated? Please.
Yeah, so it is $100,000 from Oakland County. My understanding is that $100,000 is ARPA dollars, so they are on the same timeline as other ARPA dollars. They have to be expended by the same date as our dollars.
But presumably the $100,000 decision to go towards Mattie McKinney Hatchett Park that was the county obligating their ARPA dollars.
Correct.
So it doesn't have that expiration per se, but it has that closing window when it's got to be expended.
Yes.
Okay. Councilman Rutherford.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Councilman Parker, was there anything final? You had the floor. Okay. Councilman Rutherford.
So this is in my district, so what I'm going to ask is very important. Our Dunlap is used 4 times as much as Mattie McKinney Hatchett Park. Our Dunlap was supposed to start this year. Is that a fair and actual statement from what I was told from this administration and you?
Yes.
Okay. I'm asking this because it's mighty convenient that all of a sudden Mattie's Park is first, yet our Dunlap, which is used 4 times, even more, by our community kids, is now not being fixed first. So that's a problem for me because I feel like this, if no one else is going to say it, is political. Because I love Mattie McKinley Hatchett. I've known her most of my life, but I know the kids that play at Art Dunlap been waiting on basketball rims, been waiting on it to be started on, and you and this administration told me that you were going to start Art Dunlap first. And I'm saying this even though it's in my district, Mattie, this don't make sense to me. And I want it done, so let's not get it twisted before they try to smear my words. But everybody knows that Art Dunlap was supposed to be done first. So can you explain to me why $700 and something odd dollars, $50,000, I think it's $773, is going to be spent on this park that has the least foot traffic when Art Dunlap costs less to do and can be done this year? That's my first question.
Well, first and foremost, I think if you know me, I don't play politics.
I know you don't.
I don't care personally.
I know you don't.
Not to be disrespectful, I'm here to do a job.
That's right.
I don't care
He
if
has
you
the
left,
floor.
right.
You've asked your
So
question.
I don't care. For me, getting into this process of working in this process, what I do know with the RFP that's going to be done this particular Friday to move all the rest of the mini parks forward, we have had hiccups in getting that RFP up and going and moving those things forward. So it's going to be done this particular Friday, the RFP done, with the note that when that goes out and when that bids process is done, Art Dunlap is the one that we proceed on to get moving on to that one with these 10. In terms of this one with Mattie, this is just the one that fell. That it was 3 parks that we had talked about earlier in the year that had special consideration to move and go forward first. It's Art Dunlap, it was Mattie, and it was Crystal Lake. So within how that's fell, and we're still working on with the hiccups we've had with the RFP in terms of Art Dunlap within those other 10 parks, this is how this one phased out. It wasn't nothing intentional that I did or working towards that. It's just that our processes, we got to continue to get better at our process so we can move at a faster pace and get these things done.
And let me just say, because it's my follow-up, that I don't think you did nothing, okay? But I do know common sense ain't always common around here. And so my second question is, being that is the issue, at what time are y'all going to do Art Dunlap? Because you guys said it was this year. You guys have been telling everybody it's this year. You have had every meeting saying it's this year. So we lied to my community. We lied. So what's the timeline when Art Dunlap going to be done?
I don't have that because it all depends on when the RFP is officially up and out. So when the RFP is up, it's 21 days from there. Then I have to come back before you with a recommendation of when this solicitation is even this. Even with this one, this is just the first step. What I've learned is you take it one step at a time. All I'm doing is going to the first step, which is getting approval through you. Then once we get the contract signed, that's when the contractor gives us the actual schedule.
And my last question is, what happens if we don't spend the $773,000? Does it go back beyond the rest of the parks? Can we spread it equally? I'm just asking a question.
Well, we don't know. This is just not to exceed that amount of money. So that's not going to say that it's going to cost this much. Whatever is not spent, I would assume it go back to the pot, of which the money comes from for ARPA.
Thank you for your honesty.
So the contractor that's before us right now, they provided examples of other parks they've done. Americans with Disabilities Act improvements at Heritage Park in Canton Township, improvements at Crosswinds Marsh Park in the Belleville area of Wayne County, and then a Peace Park in Hamtramck as well. So if community members were interested in learning more, that's an option to see the scope or caliber of work. Mayor Grimel, you have your hand, and then Councilman James.
Yeah, just to, I think, answer the fundamental question here. As Director Price indicated, all three parks were intended to be done this year. The reason why this is the first park coming before council for a construction contract is that even before this year, the design and engineering for this park were completed because that was done by the Pontiac Community Foundation before we took over this project. And so as a result, this park was always further along in the process than either of the two other parks because the design and engineering work had already been completed on it.
Councilwoman James?
Yeah, I wanted to also clarify that as chair of Parks Recreation. Mattie McKinney Hatchett Park, we had 3 parks that were pulled ahead for specific reasons. Mattie McKinney Hatchett Park was one. It was pulled ahead because we already had a design, a conceptual design, and we had already made the decision that we were going to use the conceptual design that was done by the Pontiac Community Foundation, by the Zarema and Company, that we were going to use that design. So since none of the other parks had designs, that allowed us to move Mattie McKinney Hatchett Park ahead. Now, I think we need to make the point that it's rare for a community organization to be able to raise over $200,000. Their goal was $500,000, but they were only able to raise $214,000 to renovate Mattie McKinney Hatchett Park. It's not often that a city gets $214,000 dropped in their lap by a community organization. So I think that's what we, as we talk about this, we need to put things in perspective. We are benefiting as a city that we had a community organization that cared enough that went out there and raised on their own $214,000. A grant was written to Oakland County. They gave us another $100,000. So we are going into the Mattie McKinney Hatchett Park with $314,000 that the citizens did not pay for or did not contribute to. So we are adding, in order to be able to do that project, our own ARPA dollars. But that is the reason why Mattie McKinney Hatchett Park is going to be the first one to be completed, because it had, when we took over this project from the Pontiac Community Foundation, it already had design. So all we had to do was go in and create the construction drawings, which now have been done, and we are ready now to award the construction contract. None of the other parks are at that level. I was at the meeting for Art Dunlap. That is also a park that we want to pull ahead. Art Dunlap needed the design. That's been done. Mr. Price is already talking about the RFP to move that into construction, where construction drawings will be done. And we had made the decision in our Parks and Recreation meeting that once those designs are done, once the construction drawings are complete, that construction company would start with the Art Dunlap Park, because he can't start with all of them. And we've already agreed that Art Dunlap is one of the parks.
Order in the chambers.
Ahead, and that will be the first park that they will start on from the mini and the neighborhood parks. So just want to clarify that. And I'm chair of the Parks, Recreation, and Public Works Subcommittee, and I have never heard a discussion that we were going to have that park done this year. Because we have talked about, we wanted to have it done this year. We've had many discussions about this, but because of the schedules and how the slow process of how this thing's work, the last report that they gave in our meeting is that work is not going to begin this year. It will probably be the end of the year, if then, that it will start, but it won't kick off until next spring.
Councilwoman Rutherford?
Okay. The last meeting that we had with Alexander Born-Gesser, do you recall that meeting, sir?
I do not. That might have been back before Alex left.
It was the last meeting. I wouldn't have said, I want to give clarity before I ask this question. I wouldn't have said we were starting Art Dunlap first if I wasn't assured by this administration that we were starting first. That's the first thing. That's what I was told by you three. You've admitted that. So the second thing is, it was stated that the concept is not done for Art Dunlap. Is that an actual statement? Is that true? Is the concept design with all the drawings and the gentleman you had come to a meeting is it not done?
It's done. We're waiting on
So
RFP.
it's done, meaning that we don't have to do Mattie first. We need to do the park, which has the most foot trafficking, which would have been Art Dunlap. Because when you did your assessment, and I'm bringing it up to make a point, we can't say that it's because a person raised money, because for 2 years, the individuals that had the money didn't get the rest of the money, and the city had to ask for it back. That's the reason why because they couldn't get the $500,000. The city didn't get, that's what happened. We got to stop. Don't do that, because that's insulting to me. Originally, this was the first announcement when we first got in was about Mattie McKinney Hatchett Park being done in 2023. That didn't happen. 2024, that didn't happen. Now 2022, 2023. Now it's 2024. The reason why I'm so irritated is because we are playing games which is not going to directly benefit the people in my district who have begged, who have asked for basketball rims, who have asked for a scoring board, who asked y'all to just put up nets, which you went and done. And it costs less to fix Art Dunlap than it does to do Mattie McKinney Hatchett. And is that not a true statement?
I do not know if it costs less, because all the designs were split up. See, the $6 million is the $4 million that's dedicated to all the 10 neighborhood parks are split up in terms of that design. It all goes in different phases in terms of how the builder is looking to develop and build those. This is all about timing. So there's a construction season and there's an off-peak construction season. When you're in construction season, the prices are going to be different. When you're off construction season like we are now, the prices are going to be higher to get these things done in this term and this year. So until that RFP goes out and until we get those official numbers and bids back in, we don't know. So if I was doing Art Dunlap right now, it could be higher than what it would be in the spring. That's just what it is. I can't honestly say which one is going to be higher than the other one.
Okay, so I get that, but this is what I'm asking. Isn't Mattie McKinley Hatchett Park bigger than Art Dunlap?
It's bigger.
Okay, so if a space is bigger, then it's going to projectively cost more. And so my question again is, how are y'all I just don't understand this. I don't. And I get it that it's going to be, he going to try to rebut it and say, you agreed. I do support Mattie because I know which angle he going to try to come at me. I don't care about that. But I care about is that when you guys told me one thing, we said we were doing one thing, now we're going to spend a whole bunch of money on this one particular park, when if we split it down the middle, both parts can be started. That's all I'm trying to do is get a middle ground. That's it. I know it's a losing argument, but I have to argue it because my kids still don't have basketball rims. My kids still can't use the park. So they got to go out all the way from the south side to Mattie's Park because it's going to be finished. That's it. It's sickening. That's it.
Next on the speakers list is Councilwoman Jones.
I understand there's still some uncertainty around this, my question, but as of right now, would it be fair to predict that both parks will be completed by 2025?
Mayor Grimal.
Yes, absolutely. We anticipate that both parks will be under construction beginning in the spring. The Mattie Hatchett Park may even start yet this fall because of the timing of the construction contract. But this is pretty simple. We can't hire a construction contractor until the RFP for construction goes out. The RFP for construction can't go out until both the design and engineering work is completed for a park. And when we took on this project a little less than a year ago, the design work for it had already been completed. So it was further along in the process than Art Dunlop, where that design work didn't start until early this year. And so that's what determines the order of priority. It's not about the money, because money is not the limiting factor here. What's the limiting factor is getting the design and engineering work done. That was further ahead in the process when we took on this project less than a year ago, and that is why this is coming before council first for construction approval. The other thing I'll note is that the ARPA dollars could certainly be allocated to other parks, but the $314,000 cannot be allocated to other parks. That was allocated for this park specifically. It was donated specifically for the Mattie Hatchett Park, and that money presumably will be lost unless the donors agree to reallocate it for some other purpose.
To take a step back, we are a few days from October 2024. In January of 2022, when maybe our second or third meeting in these city council chambers, we were heralding the improvements made to Mattie McKinney Hatchett Park. Now, I'm not assigning any blame to anyone in this room because that wouldn't be accurate or fair, but that leads to frustration and excruciating timeline. When the meeting that Councilman Rutherford referenced at the beginning of this year, I want to say January, since then Director Borngesser was still here, it was identified, 2 years in, that, hey, we've got to recalibrate to get these neighborhood and mini parks. This city council voted to authorize and identify those neighborhood and mini parks 2 years ago. So 2 years have gone by, and that's why it feels excruciating, because we want those improvements, we want those investments into the neighborhoods, into the parks, because they have so many needs. And this is only going to deal with a portion of the parks. There are still many other parks that need a lot of TLC too. So when we can only do a portion of the parks, and then even that portion work isn't even started, that leads to a lot of frustration, but also it's been communicated to the residents. Hey, this park was approved. This improvement's happening. These funds are identified. Here's what we've authorized for ARPA funding. And then years go by, that leads to an erosion of confidence from the residents to say, they didn't mean it. It's not really going to happen. So it creates a greater burden on the city, bearing in mind that there was 2 years where there was no Parks and Recreation Director. You're still in your less than a first year. So, and there had been no Parks and Recreation Department for a dozen years before that. So we've got a lot of systemic challenges and barriers here. But Councilman Rutherford, going off of the assurances of the city's executive leadership, Parks and Recreation leadership, grants and philanthropy leadership, had reiterated, communicated, passed along. They said Art Dunlap's happening this year. And so here we are, it ain't happening, and that's the challenge and the barrier. I myself am not going to hold this park hostage to make the other thing happen sooner, but you can hear why she is emphasizing that point, because it was communicated over and over again that it would be happening sooner than it is actually happening. And that's true for all the parks. I mean, Councilman Rutherford is a squeaky wheel, but there are 7 districts and there are 7 groups of different parks, and those are the frustrations and challenges. Pro Tem Carrington for a first time. Thank you.
Yes, President, I'd like to call for the vote on this particular matter.
That means that the speakers would be cut off since we have speakers already identified. Is there a second to end debate and go into vote? Support. Okay. So now the motion before us is just no more talking. Let's get voting. That's the motion essentially. All those in, roll call. We're required to do roll calls. Clerk, do a roll call on the motion to end debate and move into voting. So this isn't the decision. This is, do you want to stop talking about it?
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford,
No.
Carrington,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Jones,
No.
McGinnis.
What's it require? 2/3?
No.
Just a simple majority?
Yes.
Okay. I'm a no since there was one more person that speak, but the motion still carries. Four
yeas.
voted to
Yes.
end debate. So we now go to vote on the resolution. This is a resolution requesting that the Pontiac City Council approves granting the bid award to DMC Consultants, Inc., and to execute an agreement for an amount not to exceed $773,340.43 using American Rescue Plan Act funding to make construction improvements to Mattie McKinney Hatchett Park. Roll call on that motion, Clerk Doyle.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Parker,
No.
Rutherford,
No.
Carrington,
Yes.
Goodman,
No.
James,
Yes.
Jones.
No.
3 yeas, 4 nays.
Order in the chambers. All right, so that motion fails. We're at number 5. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution approving budget amendment for the fiscal year to increase budget revenues in the amount of $300,000 to general fund for carbon monoxide detectors?
So moved.
Is there a second?